I think this describes many of us. We grew up around church or maybe around church people. We've had some experiences with the church, and most of them weren't terrible. Maybe you went to church on a church youth trip when you were a kid or to Bible camp with a friend. Maybe you have people in your life who are really into their religion and they are really, really nice people. But if you're honest, when it comes to your faith, your perceptions of Christianity, you've got some doubts. And if you're really honest, when you look at what certain Christians say or what they do or how they act in the world, you're honestly sort of disappointed. Which again, if we're going to be really honest today, all this has caused you to become more than a little disillusioned when it comes to faith, church, and Christianity. If that's you, today I want to say, I get it. As a pastor, I get it. And today I want to start a conversation which we're simply calling, I just don't know. It's an honest conversation about Christianity for those of us who are doubters, those who have been disappointed, those of us who find us disillusioned by the church and Christianity. If that's you, I hope you'll stick around. Hey gang, a recent study found that 70% of students who grew up participating in church as middle schoolers and high school students, when they enter adulthood, get this, they are leaving church behind. 70% of all kids who grow up in church, they're dropping out and they're never returning. This tells me that the majority of us have our doubts. We've been disappointed by our church experiences, which has left us to feel disillusioned by faith. Folks, today, this is the first session of a 5-part series that we're calling I'm Just Not Sure. The first 4 sessions, we're going to take a look at 4 topics that are stumbling blocks for many of us when it comes to faith. Today, we're going to take a look at Christianity's relationship to violence. And then after these first 4 sessions, I'm going to close it out with a final session where I want to share with you a new version of Christianity that I see emerging. It's a version that is filled with hope. I can't wait to share it with you. But today, I want to talk about one of those stumbling blocks. One of the stumbling blocks for many of us when it comes to faith is the violence that's been perpetrated throughout history at the hands of Christian people. I think many of us scratch our head and we ask, how could Christians who claim to follow Jesus do the horrible things that Christians have done throughout history? Of course, the irony of Christian violence is mind-boggling. Christians claim to follow Jesus, who was an oppressed Palestinian Jew living in a Middle Eastern nation that was occupied by a European empire centered in Rome. Jesus challenged the empire by proclaiming an alternative kingdom. He called it the kingdom of God. It was an empire that stood in sharp contrast to Rome's empire. Rome's empire, it was violent, while God's empire was nonviolent. Rome's empire was characterized by domination, while God's empire was characterized by humility, service, freedom for the marginalized. Rome's empire was preoccupied with money, while God's empire in Jesus was preoccupied with generosity. Rome's empire was fueled by a love for power and control, while God's empire, it was fueled by the power of love. Its leader in Jesus invited us to love our neighbors as ourselves. His followers would sing, they will know we are Christians by our, say it with me, by our love. Now, for the first 4 centuries of Christianity, this is what Christians were known for: acceptance, service, caring for neighbors, sacrificial love, humility. It was a radical alternative to the evil empire of Rome. But in the 4th century, get this, listen to this, the Christian story deviated. Constantine became the emperor. The Roman Empire, it had been weakened by political corruption, invasions, plagues, insurrections, economic instability. And Constantine was determined to gain moral authority, to grow the empire to greatness and unite the empire's faction. And get this, he saw Christianity as a useful tool. And so just before a critical battle, Constantine claimed to have had a vision in which the Christian cross became a sword and a spear of warfare, and a heavenly voice that came down to Constantine and promised military victory if he painted the cross on the shields of his soldiers. When they won the battle, the union of Christianity and the Roman Empire, it just seemed like a match made in heaven. The Holy Catholic Church became the Roman Catholic Church, and under the cross, Rome would set a new course for Christianity in that 4th century. It would be known as an organization that conquered, that killed, that dominated, that crushed, that exploited, that ruled over anyone who would not pledge allegiance. And of course, this isn't the last time Christians have deviated from the way of Jesus. In the 1100s through the 1400s, tens of thousands of people were deemed heretics. They were prosecuted, tortured, put to death by the church. Women would often get tried as witches by the church, some 800,000 put to death. The Inquisition publicly tortured hundreds of thousands of people under the auspices of the church. In Hitler's Germany, Nazi swastikas adorned the inside of churches as Christians supported Hitler's plan to exterminate the Jews. Christians vehemently supported slavery and opposed the rights of women. And that's not to mention the sexual abuse and violence that happened in secret in churches, schools, monasteries, and families. When it comes to Christianity, folks, it's no wonder so many of us find ourselves saying, I just don't know. With this history of violence, it's no wonder there are doubters. There are those who have been disappointed by the church and find themselves disillusioned by Christianity. To state what I hope is obvious, Jesus never tortured or killed or ruined the life of anyone. He never endorsed violence. Rather, violence would end his life because he refused to take a violent path. Jesus even told Peter to put away the sword in the garden. But the same cannot be said for the religion that claims to follow him. Knowing what I know, if I were not already a Christian, I would hesitate in becoming one sometimes. At least this aberration of Christianity that seems to raise its head all too often. But the original version of Christianity, the 1st century Jesus version, the love our neighbors as ourselves, they will know we are Christians by our love version of Christianity, that Christianity that was characterized by acceptance and service and care of your neighbor, sacrificial love, humility, a Christianity that's a radical alternative to the empire. Isn't that what we all need? Isn't that what we all long for? Isn't that what the world needs? A return to that. Hey, as we close today, here are a couple of questions for you to consider. What violence that's been perpetrated by Christians has caused you to doubt, to be disappointed with the church, or maybe a little disillusioned? And secondly, as we close, how could Christianity return to its 1st century roots? Is it even possible?